So this may be one of the scariest yet most exciting podcasts that I have ever recorded to date. And just even the thought of that excites me for what the future has in store. So over the last couple of weeks, some profound things have unfolded within my life. And I'm hoping to share a lot more of those with you guys as the future rolls out, as more podcasts come out, as more information and more truth comes out. I look forward to sharing all of that with you guys. But the main thing that I am here to share with you guys today is a huge decision that I have made. I guess it's not that huge. In the grand scheme of things, it's just one more small step towards a brighter future. But that step is that I've decided that I'm running for Congress. I will be running in the 12th District of PA, which is the area that is essentially Pittsburgh. It's not all of Pittsburgh, but they carve up these lines in very interesting ways, which we'll talk about in the future, I'm sure. And provokingly, the next question that comes up is, which party? Clayton, which party are you going to run in? And this is the craziest part, because the two main parties that are in control of our system, they're not interested in what truly matters to the people. They're not interested in what's going to bring peace and prosperity for all. They're more interested in arguing over topics and conversations and items that don't bring us a brighter future, that don't bring us more safety and stability, that don't bring us more happiness and joy. And so, what party am I running with? I have joined forces, and I have decided that I will be running as a candidate of the American Congress Party. The American Congress Party, mentioned briefly at the end of my last podcast, I knew nothing about at the time of the recording. And even just re-listening back, we didn't talk about it at all. But now I want to just talk about it forever, because the policies and the values of the American Congress Party just seem to make sense. And I don't know how anyone can even argue with what the values of the policies, values and the policies of what the American Congress Party represents. But if someone can, that's why I'll still be making this podcast, so that people can come on and we can talk about it. Especially if you live within the 12th District of PA, I want to hear your thoughts. As a representative, as a public servant, I need to know how to serve you, the people. And right now we're going to start small. We're going to start with the city of Pittsburgh. And I want to make this place heaven on earth. And that's my goal. I have ideas of how that can be done, and I won't know until, I hear from you guys. I hear your thoughts. I hear your opinions. I hear your ideas. Because this is the true diversity that we're missing in politics specifically, but America as a whole, which is that diversity of thought, the diversity of ideas. And we need to use those diversity of thoughts and ideas if we're going to bring unity and peace on earth, which is the goal. That is how we bring heaven to earth. So what policies, what values is it that American Congress Party is putting forth, that I myself also agree with, that will bring heaven to earth? So the very first one, and this has always been a conversation piece that many people have dove into, which is free education. We need to be able to have wisdom and knowledge if we're going to make the best choices for ourselves. There's no question about it. How can you know what's right or what's wrong, what's best for you, if you're uneducated? So we need to find a way, and I have ideas, but we need to find a way to bring free education to all. On top of this, as another core tenet and value of the American Congress Party, free food. How can you make the best decision for yourself if you're hungry? If your body is operating at suboptimal levels? How? I don't see that as being even feasibly possible. So we're going to find a way, and trust me, I know that it exists, which is to find free food, to bring it to the people who need it the most. And I'll get into how I know, if you lean right, I know that your mind is probably going to be pulling you towards, how are we going to fund all this? I'll get there, I promise, because whenever these ideas were getting rolled out to me, that was my first question. Because I know I tend to lean right, and if you've listened to the podcast, I've definitely come more centered. But I still feel like there's probably something in me that's saying, hey, how are we going to support all this? We'll get to that in the other values. But we're not done with the free stuff. Free, in air quotes. Free medication. If you're in pain, if you're suffering an injury, how are you supposed to think about the future? All you're able to think about is, how can I get better? Which is important. But it's not the biggest questions or biggest things that we need in order to transcend and get to this place of heaven. We need to feel safe and secure. And free education, free food, and free medication are all going to supply that. And how are we going to supply those free items? The biggest piece of the puzzle is waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to be cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse that happens throughout our system. We're going to re-examine the red tape that gets put up around all of these industries that could be doing so much more, that politicians maybe of the past have taken bribes in order to alleviate concerns or to carry out policies that are in the best interests of corporations as opposed to the individual. And that is a loaded topic that deserves its own podcast. But waste, fraud, and abuse is a huge one. And on top of that, it might sound backwards, but we're reducing taxes. Give the money back to the people who know how to spend it, who know how to use it for their best interest. All government does is waste and abuse it. If you take more money out of the economy to just waste and abuse, there's going to be less overall. And also on the topic of money, another issue we have is that our money is not tied to anything. It's just a floaty thing that we can just print out of thin air. The problem with that is that it makes it worthless. So, the American Congress Party and myself are calling for us to go back to the gold standard. We need a physical item to tie money to. We need a physical item in order to put value in the dollar. Otherwise, it's valueless. And on the topic of money, a tremendous amount of money gets wasted on foreign wars. We need to stop the wars. They must come to an end. If we're to bring heaven to earth, war cannot be a part of that equation. We'll get into it in a bit, but it definitely breaks my heart when I look at the numbers that I've looked at in regards to what's occurring in the Middle East right now. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast, because that's something that we really need to dive into more and understand. Because right now, the whole conversation is around whether we should be on Palestinian side or Israeli side. But the fact of the matter is that anybody who is carrying out devastation, destruction, and the killing of innocent people should be condemned, should not be tolerated. Doesn't matter who started it. All that matters is the innocent lives that have been lost, which is already in the thousands. War must stop. There's never a reason for it. It's the consequence of people in power who never see the fallout of it. And this is something I can go much deeper into detail with. But for the sake of this podcast, of this transmission, I'm going to keep it at that for now. And we will dive into that in much more detail. But the people who suffer from war are not the people who are making the calls. That is a problem. Politicians, government officials sit in ivory towers while the innocent people are laid to pick up the rumble and the crumbling of their cities. It's heartbreaking. So how can you help? What is it that I'm putting this out there for? Well, number one, I would love to invite everybody listening to this to go to AmericanCongressParty.com. There you can see more of our policies, you can see the organization, but most importantly, you can fill in your information. Put in the ballot, not the ballot, blanking now. Fill out the form so that we can get in contact with you, especially if you live within the 12th District of PA. If you're not sure, throw your name in there anyhow, because I'll be sending out an email once it's time to collect signatures in February. I need 3,694 signatures in order to get on the ballot. That's the goal. That is the biggest goal that I have. This entire campaign, the election that I'm running for, it's really not about winning or losing at this point. I am looking at this in terms of about a 20-year goal, which can definitely tell you guys if you guys are interested in that. And I don't know what you guys are interested in, so we'll touch on that in a second. But the goal of this campaign, in regards to winning and losing, is to show and encourage other people to realize that there is a party trying, attempting, putting our best foot forward in order to bring common sense back to politics, in order to show everyone, to show the world that sanity is still out there. To show that there are people who are craving this. To show politicians that there are people who are craving this. And with that being said, I would like to also make this an open invite to any congressman, congresswoman, person in government, any government official who wishes to come on the podcast. Consider this an open invite. At time of recording, I've already reached out to the campaigns, to the offices of everyone who's in charge within the state of PA. So shoot them a message. This is another way that you can get involved. Shoot all of them a message telling them that you want them to go on the Traveling to Consciousness podcast. Because I don't have contentment for these people. I understand the predicament that they're in. And I know what it is that they desire. At least I think I do. And this is where it comes back to bringing them on the podcast. I want to be a journalist to talk to them, to ask them why. In the current news cycle, we don't get to hear that. We get the short sound bites, we get the sensationalism, and all it's done is create more division. But it's time for some unity. And so that is why I'd love to invite any of them on. Right, left, middle, some third dimensional version of the spectrum that I'm not aware of, come on the podcast. Let's have a conversation. So what does this mean for the podcast moving forward as a whole? Well, kind of just gave you a little brief there. But it also means for the podcast that I'm still going to be having the guests on. You're going to have more spiritual politics, which I know people have been craving, because every time I do one, people are like, I want more of these. So more spiritual politics will be coming, as it's clearly a foundation of mine now, which is wild. If you had asked me even a month ago if I'd be running for politics or getting into the political sphere, I'd have told you no, I wasn't. But funny that. So yeah, I'm moving forward. My podcast I record in Pittsburgh, PA. So anybody who first and foremost lives within the district, who feels that there is an important issue that Pittsburgh is facing, bring it up to me. And if it feels aligned, if it feels like something that I know nothing about and I'm interested in, and I feel like that it is a important thing to have a discussion about, we'll have a discussion about it. And I also, this touches on, I don't 100% know what you guys want. I have an idea. I mean, I told you my values, but I don't specifically know what the issues are of every single common person within the 12th district of PA. So if you're on Spotify, if you're listening on Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube, wherever it is, please leave a comment of what it is you desire to come forth in this podcast. What topics do we need to bring spirituality into? Because the world is ready for a spiritual revolution. Whether you've seen it or not, it's there. It's happening. And this platform, this Congress, this party, an element of it is the spiritual revolution, to bring heaven down to earth, to integrate it into our everyday lives. So as I was saying, if you're on Spotify, let me know. There should be a comment section that says something like, what did you like about this podcast? Please let me know. I'll try to change that in the future, but right now, just let me know what topics you would like me to discuss at a political level, because I believe firmly in transparency. You guys are my leader. I know it's my name that's on the ballot, but it should read the people, because I don't know what you guys want. These are my agendas. Bring heaven to earth. What policies do you guys want to hear? What ideas or political issues do you want to hear about where I currently believe bring heaven to earth? And if there's anything that I've said that you think is just wrong, insane, crazy, not going to bring heaven to earth, let me know. Because if there's anything I've learned from this podcast over the last 2.5 years, is that I have a lot more to learn. So tell me, what is it that I have to learn in regards to politics? But please be my leader. I'm your humble servant, and suppose I'm just doing what brings myself more joy. So if you're curious what I'm seeking out of this, it's to bring myself more joy. And I think also, if I'm looking at this, I mentioned the 20-year plan. I think I'm looking at this, so I'm 30. Well, I'm 29. I'll be 30 in March. And I'm looking at this as I've got a lot of life to live. Why not live it in heaven? So bring heaven to earth and then enjoy heaven. I mean, it sounds like a pretty solid life goal in my opinion. So in my closing remarks, if any of this touched a core piece with you, please share this with others. Let them know that there is this revolution coming. Let them know that we need people within the American Congress Party. We need other people contesting elections in the name of the American Congress Party. So please share this. If you're trying to figure out ways you can get involved, if you feel like you know that you want to get involved but don't know how, please reach out to me. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm excited, guys. This is really the start of something new. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I know that I'll see you all in the 6th dimension.